Okay, this is Rank Carcass RC again here. I'm going to do a quick flyby of the map. I've set up the neutrals. I've set up the Netherlands Fights Back as a neutral. I just used the setup from the expansion on the map. And I did the same thing with Turkey at War, just as an optional setup on the map here. You don't have to do that, but it's available as an option, and I decided to do that. So I'm just going to do a quick run by here. First off, just so that it all makes sense, the game I am going to be covering here is Global War 1936 to 1945. It's made by Historical Wargaming, and that and a lot of other stuff that's either on my map or in other people's variations of these maps are available on their website. There we go. All right, so I'm going to actually start in South America because it's got all three of my neutral colors on there, and it'll make it a little bit easier to see. I actually have 4 neutral colors, but we'll start here because it's easier to explain this way. It's too much light. There we go. Okay, so let's start here. We've got the dark gray. This gray actually matches the classic German gray, and you'll notice the fighter is actually from classic, so I didn't actually paint that guy. And so there you go. I'm using this light gray or dark gray as the axis alignable miners. So anywhere the dark gray is on the map is something that the axis specifically and only is able to align or is controlling. Anything in this dark green here, this is actually infantry from the Pacific, the original Pacific game. I painted up a bunch of stuff to closely match, not perfectly, but close enough. And those units are the ones that the Allies either control or may align. And then this Japanese pumpkin orange here that I have for Chile are the nations that will align to nothing. Unless, of course, somebody attacks it, then it will obviously align to whoever's at war with the person that's declared war on it. You know, that's usually how these things go, but anything that's got special conditions like this, Argentina, the Axis can roll for it. They can pay them some money, do a roll. If it's successful, this becomes German aligned. All this dark green stuff here with the no, that's the wrong pact. Here, I am starting to say the wrong thing, so let's take a look at what it actually says on the sheet here. Monroe Doctrine, that's what I was looking for, not the Molotov. Anyway, the Monroe Doctrine is something that's a rule in this game that allows anything that's the dark green here, so Mexico, Latin America, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Brazil to be aligned to the Americans. Common misconception in a lot of our games when somebody reads that, it's very specific. It does say exactly which countries align, and it does specifically not mention Argentina. That is only Axis alignable. And both cannot align Chile. That is not alignable to either one. So a little tidbit of information if you're ever in that. And what else do I got here? I'm just going to do a fly. Since I'm starting in this corner, let's do a flyby up to the US. This is the 1936 setup. Now, as you can see, the Americans only have 2 land units and an aircraft. Other than that, they just got the starting Navy here. It's not a tiny Navy. It's not insignificant for game purposes, but in theory, it's about the same as the British, or almost the same as the French, and it's double the Yeah, it's just barely double the Italians. So that's just a little tidbit, and it definitely dwarfs the German Navy. So America starts off with almost no land units. And since we're talking about America, let's just rip across the map here to America on this side. And you'll notice that the Americans also have not a huge navy. It's not insignificant, but this one is smaller on this side. And they've got 1 infantry, 1 light tank, and 1 tactical. And yes, this is British. It is not American, although every game somebody thinks, oh, that must have slid down because it belongs to that navy. No, that's Vancouver, not Seattle. All right, what else do I have here? The Americans also have a tiny force here. They got a militia and some navy there. And they also, and I'm flying around the map. I'm not trying to make you dizzy. They also have this militia here in Panama and a coastal gun. For coastal guns, for ease of use here, I'm just using these AA guns from the original Pacific and Europe. So that's it. Yeah. So that's the Americans here. Now let's go on to Spain, which is a special case. This is not using the expansion, the Spanish Civil War, but in the base game, there is a civil war going on in Spain. And I'm using the dark gray here, along with this roundel, for the nationalist Spain, or the fascist controlled by, or under Franco, who are controlled by the Germans. So anything that's dark gray around here, like that guy on the island, these guys here, they are all the German-controlled fascists, thus the same gray. And then we have this yellow, which I'm using as the Comintern controlled neutrals or minor powers as well. It's just a random color choice, and that's all it is really. And yeah, so this coastal sub here, I got a bunch of these from General Hand Grenade, and I didn't get a chance to paint them up yet, so I just put the roundel on that. I have some torpedo boat destroyers, like this one here. Yeah, let's just pull the pen over here. So I have some torpedo boat destroyers, like Italy's got this one here. And these are coastal subs, right? And then when I didn't have enough torpedo boat destroyers, I just used this. Oh, I should probably move the camera. It's just the gray chips here. I also have the gray chips underneath the sub. That would denote that it is a coastal sub, in case it's not a different shape or sculpt. All right, so let's just pan over the map here fairly quickly. France doesn't have a lot of units. I mean, it's got a bit, but that's it. That's pretty much the French. So they got a navy here and here, which is not quite up to that, but if they brought the navy from there, it would match the Italian navy. I'm gonna have to zoom that out. There we go. No point using a wide angle lens and then zooming it in. I might as well just left it off. All right, so all this French navy in the blue is roughly equivalent. Actually, it outmatches the Italians all by themselves. So that's just a little tidbit of information. Like, you'll notice that Italy has almost no troops, right? I'm using these brown as mountains, so they got 1 mountain, 3 regulars, and 2 militia. That's all they got for land troops up there, right? They got a mountain dude here, and they got a little bit of troops down here, but not much. Although aircraft wise, Italy actually matches the British, because the British only have 2 aircraft that are not bombers. One's here on this light carrier, and the other one's with the FEC. So you'll notice that Africa does not have a lot of units here. There's just I got these little militia dudes, right? The British got a militia here and there. Abyssinia is in this dark green, controlled by France, because it starts at war with these brown guys owned by the Italians. So there's really not a lot of guys in here, anywhere you look, there's not a great big stack of anything. Like I'm using these white chips as ones. And the only spot I ever needed to use a green chip to denote more than 2 chips here is right here. There's 5 infantry in Romania. But there you go. So yeah, British don't start with a lot of stuff. They got 1 infantry and 2 militia, 2 planes. That's all they got on the land. Germany doesn't have a lot in the black there. It's basically the same as the French. They just have a couple more aircraft. The orange there is the Netherlands, the Dutch. That dark green here in Poland, that would be because it will align to the Allies if France, Great Britain, or Poland get attacked. They have that little pact of theirs. All right. Yeah, all the neutrals up there, conditions dependent, they may align one way or the other. Same with these neutrals here. That's all the pumpkin orange. These 3 here, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria, will align after the fall of Paris to Germany. 1 per turn, or if Germany declares war on Russia, or the other way around, Russia declares war on Germany, there will be all 3 in 1 turn. We also have these 3 here, which are the locations that get annexed by Germany pre-war. Those are available to be annexed 1 per turn. So yeah, this game really starts pre-war. Alright, let's go over here. Now you'll notice that Russia has Russia has no chips. Everything it's got there is 1 guy here, 1 guy there, 1 of this, 1 of these. They're scattered all over the place. They got a little navy here, and they got a little navy up in there. The ones up there, but not much. So yeah, Russia's got a little bit of stuff here and there, but they don't really have a lot. They even got 1 sub in with all those Japanese there. So Middle East, well, I've already Turkey. That's set up as per the setup for the expansion there. There's not a lot of troops here, right? Iraq is in gray only because it may align to the Axis if they get something next door to it, and only the Axis. But I mean, it doesn't have to do that. Somebody else could say attack it. The Allies could attack it and take it over, and then that would not be the case. All right, you got Iran here with its roundel. Afghanistan, like there's a pile of stuff here. Now, for neutrals, now we're going to go into these white pieces here. Now the reason I have these, and I'm going to just back this up a little bit and give her a rotation. There you go, you're catching everything. These white pieces here are actually the British FEC. Now the reason we've done that, where it's a different color, is because let's say over here, the British decide that they're going to move a destroyer and a cruiser. And it can move 3 plus 1 at the Navy base, so 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then these guys move their stuff down. Well, you can tell who owns what. But if they're all the same color, we ended up having to have a few guys get a little heated saying, hey, stop stealing my battleship, or that's my cruiser, leave it alone. So, you know, just to make the... Because if you're buying a battleship or a cruiser or whatever, you don't want somebody else to sail it off to London or the Middle East. That doesn't, or sorry, not the Middle East, the Mediterranean. That doesn't help you as the FEC when you're fighting the French. Okay, what else do we got here? All right, so now we got more of the Netherlands. So this roundel here on all these islands here. So this is set up as per this 1936 start of the Netherlands in, what do you call it there? That Netherlands at War expansion with the facilities and the unit types and whatever. There's a little bit more than there would have been. Like all these facilities are extras. But it's not huge, right? It's not a huge upgrade. And yeah, so that's just set up as units. We got Australia here. I've got them in this very, very pale blue, green, whatever you want to call it. Depends on the lighting. Usually it's a kind of a green, but sometimes it shows up blue. Depends on which type of light I'm using, whether it's incandescent or fluorescent or whatnot. So it's difficult to tell. Anyway, that's what I'm using as the Australians, just because they stand out a little bit better. Now let's move on to China and Mongolia and all that fun stuff. So yeah, you got Hong Kong in the white here, right? And then these pale mint green type of color here, these are all the warlords that are actually not involved in the civil war between these dark green, American-controlled nationalist China, known as the KMT, who are at a civil war with these yellow communist Chinese. And these warlords are all kind of staying out of that fight. However, if Japan attacks this, all these mint green guys are going to go this color and join the KMT. And there's an option for a truce in there, but we'll get into that when I do my China video. But just so you know the colors, that way if something comes up and you're like, why are there two different kinds of green? Now you know. Alright, so China actually has the most land units of everybody on this entire game at the start. So they're a tough nut to crack. And you'll see here that the Japanese have like one guy here, two there, one there, and one cavalry there. All these little tiny guys are militia and can't move, so they're irrelevant to this storyline here. Now let's pan out here. You'll notice that the Central Pacific has almost nothing in it. There we go. Central Pacific has almost nothing in it. Like there's no. Australia's got a tiny navy. The Netherlands have a tiny navy. The Americans, in comparison to the Japanese, have a tiny navy. Japanese have kind of a monster there. They got 3 battleships and a fleet carrier and a light carrier and whatnot, right? So a handful of cruisers and destroyers and subs and transports. So the Japanese really own the seas at this point in time. I'm using these kamikaze discs or tokens here I got from Historical Board Gaming. I just put 2 in this zone, 2 in this zone, and 2 in that zone, because those are the 3 zones that they can be used. It helps some of our players if they're not familiar with Japan, or they've only played once or twice or never before. Gives them an idea that yes, you have these kamikaze planes, you can use 2 per turn, and these are the 3 zones that they can be used in. So there's just that as a little side here. Now the Japanese are in red. It's just the color I used for Japan first, and I got all the units in. So could be pumpkin orange, but yeah, that's how it works here. So you'll see Mongolia in here is in the pumpkin orange. They don't have a lot of units. And the reason they're this color is Mongolia doesn't care if Japan attacks here and here, as long as it stays out of Mongolia, right? If Mongolia attacks Japan, then it will become Russian. Or sorry, it gets attacked by Japan, it will become Russian. If Mongolia gets attacked by Russia, it will become Japanese. So, thus the fact that it's that pumpkin orange, the color I'm using for neutrals that do not have a set alignment condition. Alright, so that's about it. Yeah, here in Malta I've got this coastal gun. I'm using these little pillbox blocks that came in D-Day, the black ones here, as my fortifications. So if there's any confusion as to, hey, what's that? There you go. And now I got one quick shout out here to General Hand Grenade. When I was playing a game there, we were calling it Battle in the Bush. I got a bunch, he had 2 sets of these capital cities. That's hard to see here, but they're painted up in this darker red. It's a very dark red. Anyway, he had two sets. He had the large and the small set, and he was using the large set on his map, and he was a very kind and generous individual and gifted me this small set. So I'm using those for the capitals. That way, if a capital gets relocated, we know what the heck it is. In the past, I was using these factories, actually, which I'm using the whites as majors and the grays as minors, and knocking my guys down. I don't know what it is with the Japanese, but that super long bayonet, they tend to go flying all the time. So yeah, I got that one in Japan there, one in Sydney, one in Calcutta. Let's see, nothing else in Africa or anything. We've got the one in Russia there in Moscow. Colosseum in Rome. Berlin's got the Reichstag. We've got the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Parliament Building in, I believe it's Parliament Building, or is it the Palace? I can't really tell. Anyway, the British Government Building and the White House. So there we go. I also got the Arc de Triomphe, I believe is how it's pronounced in French, but I was a horrible student in French classes here in Canada. I'm from the province that's probably, you know, Alberta is a long ways away from Quebec, and there are French speakers here, but they are I probably have met more Dutch, Ukrainian, or German or Russian speakers than I have met French speakers here, just because, you know, it's a long ways away from Quebec. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for my introduction here. It's just a quick pan over the setup, and really the whole point I'm trying to get across to you is that there is almost no units. We're just going to do a quick pan here. Like, look at Britain there. There's nothing there. Germany's got just a couple of stacks of 1 or 2 infantry. France has only got 1 pilot's a stack. Right? These neutrals actually have more, probably more, are just as built up as Germany and France right now. Some of them even more so. Russia's got no chips. It's just singles. And I chip anything out that's more than one thing in a stack. It bothers me when people are playing with those big piles of mess. Can't tell if there's tanks or mechs or what. You know, trying to hide their planes underneath a pile of loose infantry. Yeah, I mean, if that's the fog of war, then whatever. But that just bothers me because you can never tell what's actually on the map. Anyway, there we got all that. And there's really not much here. So even Japan, it's got a lot of Navy, but it's got almost nothing for land troops. Right? No chips anywhere except for a little bit in Manchuria. Yeah, so realistically at the start of this game, China is the ground superpower, which is crazy, but that's how it plays. Anyway, I'm going to do a series of videos on strategy. It's going to be a little bit difficult because this game has the 1936 startup, so yeah, you don't have a lot of stuff, as you can see on the map, so people can move their stuff around and people can build whatever type of Navy, Army, Air Force combination thereof that their particular strategy they feel is going to work for them has. So yeah, or they can just save their money for a few turns and then do a big build. It's up to them. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but the general concept of what places end up being more or less strategic on the map and why, and some general concepts of how to use your Air Force or your Navy or your ground units or what special rules are in the game. I'm just going to try to cover that nation by nation. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to start. I might just follow the turn order. I might reverse the turn order. Yeah, it all depends, because I don't want to keep repeating myself. I'll probably end up having to do like one alliance all together, all by itself, right? Like all the axes together. Because This game, if you initiate war, turn 1 is Japan, you just cranked up people to full production. So these white guys, these light green guys, these blue French, the tan guys are all going to be doubling their production pretty much. And Germany is going to get overwhelmed. They will produce more than double what Germany makes. And Europe, if anything happens, is going to look like the First World War. It'll be serious stacks against serious stacks. Trench warfare is not going to be pretty if Japan doesn't coordinate with Germany. So I'll probably do it alliance by alliance, because teamwork is a serious issue in this game. If you do not play with teamwork, you're done. You will be eliminated. Alright, so I'm going to leave it there. This is kind of running a little longer than I planned, but basically it is a quick overview, run over the map, the layout, what's set up, where, how, all that stuff. That way you get a general idea when I'm talking and doing my strategy videos as to what's changing and how and when and why. And I'm just going to leave it there. So hopefully you'll enjoy this series on strategy, and yeah, have a great day.